Hi everyone, my name is Robin Lewis, and in this video I'm going to be doing some maintenance on my thicknesser. It's about 6 months old now, so it's definitely due for some kind of maintenance, and I've never done maintenance on a machine like this before, so you and me are going to figure this out as we go. This is the THU 4061 Sherwood 16-inch industrial thicknesser. It is 15 amp and comes with a spiral head.
I'll start by cleaning the machine as best as I can using the shop vac in reverse to blow the dust off. Then it's on to the first job, checking the belt tension. This hasn't been checked since I bought the machine, so from what I've read, this will almost certainly need to be adjusted as the belts will stretch after their initial use. You can see the 3 belts here and how much flex there is in them. Unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be a very accurate way of setting this tension. Even the manual is vague, calling for a small amount of deflection with medium pressure. I first loosened all the nuts on the motor and then started tightening down the top nuts. I would use the spanner to pull one nut down, then use my fingers to tighten the other one. So they were both providing roughly the same force on the motor. I was also checking the tension on the belt the whole time, and when I was happy, I tightened up the bottom nuts. Next up, I removed the top, lowered the bed, and gave the cutter head a good clean. With all the dust out of the way, I could get on to cleaning. First up was the bed rollers, and I needed to clean them before checking their height. The manual calls for less than 0.5 millimeter above the table bed. I used a feeler gauge and I was less than 0.2 millimeter, so I was happy. Keep in mind you may need to adjust this for rougher lumber, but I reckon having wax tables should do the trick. However, if I did need to adjust that roller, coming over here, there's a set screw over here, and this, if you make adjustments to this, it's an eccentric shaft according to the manual. So loosen that off, make adjustments here, and it's going to raise and lower this roller. And you'd obviously need to do the same on both sides for both rollers. Now looking up underneath, there's a number of different components here, and all of these need to be set at specific heights or distances from the table. So you've got your in-feed roller, your chip breaker, your cutter head, and then your outfeed roller. I've had no issues with these, so I'm not going to be making any adjustments, but the manual does show a way to make these adjustments if necessary by using a block of wood and then a feeler gauge to ensure that, for example, the chip breaker needs to be a certain distance below or down from the cutter head, just as an example. But all 4 of these components work together and they need to be within 0.5 millimeter of each other. Another way to make these adjustments I've seen online is with a rotator. That's going to be a lot more precise. And if I ever come around to having to make these adjustments, I think I'll make the investment into one of those. One thing I can test while I'm down here is these anti-kickback fingers or knives. How they work is the board comes through and lifts them up, and then if the board tries to go back out with kickback, these will stop it. So you always want to make sure that they are loose and able to drop back down to their starting position. So the one adjustment that I did make to this machine early on is this in-feed and out-feed tensioning spring. So this bolt over here, as well as this one here, this adjusts the in-feed roller, which is this one here. So you can see it's got these sharp edges on it, and that's to grab the material and run it through. When I first had the machine set up, I was leaving pretty significant dents in the timber. One thing I learned early on is if you use a softwood, that's generally when you're going to see it, and you get these indents running perpendicular to the direction of travel, that's an indication that your in-feed rollers are pushing down too hard for the material that you're using. So you would loosen this off. However, if you then bring in a hardwood, that roller might be set correctly for this particular timber. So you actually need to make adjustments depending on the density of the timber. Another way to make sure that you don't see this is to make a deep enough pass on the material. So if you just take off a small amount on something soft like pine, you may still see those indents, but if you take a good few millimeters off, then you won't, because the cutter head is removing those dents or those indents as the material comes through. Then further back past the cutter head, you've got the Outfeed rollers, and that's what these are for over here. So when you're adjusting these, you use an Allen wrench, and you would simply turn it clockwise. Is going to make it clockwise will make it tighter, anti-clockwise will make it looser. So you may need to adjust the infeed fairly regularly. The outfeed, this one's not so much. You just want to make sure that this isn't so tight that it's actually denting the timber. And when you do make adjustments to these, make sure you adjust on both sides. The last thing in terms of adjustments is rotating these knives. On most spiral heads, you will have either 2 or 4-sided knives. This particular model has 4-sided knives. It'll come with a tool similar to this, which you can insert into the bolt, turn it, and then out it comes to reveal the knife. Don't worry about that click the first time that you hear it. It's just the Loctite or something that they use on the bolt itself. So there's that knife, 4 different edges on it. I'm not going to be rotating mine because mine are still really sharp after all this use, but eventually I will rotate all of them. And you can tell which way to rotate all of them based on this little dot you can see in the corner. So if you rotate them all in the same direction, then that dot will be the same across all of them. And then to replace it, just do the same thing in reverse. Done. The bed's got a coat of furniture wax, although this should be done more than every 6 months. I also cleaned the posts and lubed up their screw threads, then raised and lowered the table to get it all spread out. I put the top cover back on and then added some oil to the infeed and outfeed rollers. Then finally, I drained and replaced the gearbox oil. I also had a look at the chain, expecting them to be covered in debris, but the whole mechanism was really clean. I'd also assumed I'd need to add more grease, but there was plenty. Alright, and with that, this machine is done, ready to be used again. So just to recap, we cleaned the whole machine, vacuumed inside and out, checked the V-belt tension on the motor, cleaned the beds and put some wax on them, cleaned the threads on the posts for raising and lowering the motor and lubricated them so they're going to be a lot smoother up and down. I checked the height of the bed rollers and they were fine. And lastly, took off this box to check all the gears and the chains and then replace the gearbox fluid. And I think that's all. All right. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you found this video helpful. I certainly learned a whole lot along the way. My name is Robin Lewis. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.